What if I told you the one thing you believe makes you valuable is exactly what makes her lose respect for you? Why do you always answer? Why do you always pick up? Why do you keep being available on demand, yet still feel invisible? Think about it. Every late-night text, every "I'm stressed," every "I'm bored," you respond like clockwork. And you've convinced yourself that being the guy who's always there means you matter. But here's the brutal truth: constant availability doesn't build attraction. It kills it. You're not her man. You're her free therapist, her emotional Uber, her vending machine for attention. She pushes a button. You appear. She takes what she wants. And the moment she's satisfied, you vanish from her mind until the next craving. And the worst part, you've trained yourself to enjoy it. You confuse being useful with being wanted. You mistake every ping on your phone as proof you matter. But those messages don't mean you're special. They mean you're convenient. And the more predictable you are, the less respect you'll ever get. That's why today, I'm tearing apart the biggest lie men believe about women and attention. I'll show you why being constantly available wrecks your attraction, drains your self-respect, and why stepping back strategically is the only way to flip the script. Stay with me, because once you see this truth, you'll never look at her late-night texts the same way again. Men believe their endless availability is a sign of devotion. They think answering every late-night message proves loyalty, and they hope this loyalty will be rewarded with respect. But what nobody tells them is that respect and availability do not grow together. The more predictable a man becomes, the faster respect drains away. Predictability is not reliability. It is the death of attraction. Reliability of character means standing by your word, keeping commitments, and holding your values under pressure. It means a man is trusted because he acts with integrity. Predictability of access, however, is something else entirely. It means his time is always up for grabs. His focus is always interrupted. His attention is always for sale at the price of someone else's boredom. Women do not admire this. They exploit it. The cruel irony is that men mistake exploitation for intimacy. Every time she pings him with drama or demands, he feels important. He believes he matters because she reaches out. But this is an illusion. She is not choosing him, she is using him. Emergency buttons are not cherished. They are pressed, drained, and forgotten. This is the trap most men never escape. They stay addicted to being needed. They cling to the fantasy that usefulness equals value. But usefulness without boundaries turns a man into furniture always present, never noticed. And once he becomes furniture in her emotional room, he loses the very thing he craves most, her respect. Society reinforces this lie. From childhood, men are told that being good means being selfless, always sacrificing, especially for women. But that script is not noble. It is a design for depletion. It trains men to measure their worth by how much of themselves they can burn for someone else's comfort. Not partnership, but parasitism. And here is the uncomfortable truth: when men stop being available, they do not lose real love. They only lose those who were never interested in them as men. They were only interested in the service. That is the line no one dares to cross, because it forces men to face a painful reality. So the real question becomes, what happens when a man finally refuses to be the utility? What happens when he pulls the plug on the system that feeds on his energy? Usefulness without boundaries turns a man into background noise, always heard, never remembered. The deeper injustice is that This trap is not an accident. It is a system, carefully reinforced by culture, stories, and expectations. Men are told from every angle that sacrifice is their highest virtue. A good man always provides. A good man never says no. A good man is measured by how much of himself he gives away. But what nobody admits is that this script does not elevate men. It breaks them. It turns their energy, their focus, and their purpose into free fuel for someone else's comfort. This is why men stay locked inside the cycle. They are praised for endurance, but never respected for boundaries. They are rewarded with crumbs of affection when they serve, then starved of attention if they dare to step back. It is not devotion, it is conditioning, like a dog trained to expect a treat after every trick. Men are programmed to feel valuable only when they perform, and once they buy into this pattern, it becomes addictive. The addiction is powerful because it disguises itself as love. Every message answered, every problem fixed, every drama absorbed creates the illusion of connection. Men feel important because they are being used. They mistake being needed for being desired. They mistake exhaustion for intimacy. And like every addiction, it gives a high that fades fast, followed by a deeper emptiness that demands another fix. But here lies the cruelest twist. When men finally try to break free, the system fights back. Women who have grown used to endless service do not release it easily. They escalate their demands. They invent emergencies. They weaponize guilt. Anything to pull him back into the old pattern. The louder the protest, the clearer the proof the man was never valued for who he is. He was only valued for what he provides. This is not romance. It is exploitation disguised as devotion. It is a scam that convinces men to equate depletion with love. And until they see the con for what it is, they remain trapped, bleeding respect with every instant reply. So the question sharpens: if serving without limits destroys a man's value, what does it take to rebuild it? What does it look like when he stops feeding the system altogether? Love does not demand exhaustion. Only exploitation does. The cost of this addiction is devastating, but men rarely see it until it's too late. At first, it feels harmless. A late-night reply, a skipped workout, a project delayed because she needed to vent. But these small sacrifices pile up. Over time, they erode a man's focus, his goals, his sense of self. What looks like kindness is actually corrosion. This is the silent danger men begin to confuse their own identity with their usefulness. They no longer ask, "Who am I?" They ask instead, "What can I give her?" The man becomes an accessory to someone else's story, a background prop rather than the main character of his own life. And once he accepts this role, he stops growing. His ambitions stall. His independence fades. His masculine presence withers. Women sense this weakness, even if they don't say it aloud. Desperate availability does not inspire affection. It signals that a man has nothing else going on, no mission greater than being at her service. And what nobody tells men is this: nothing kills desire faster than neediness. Not strength, but submission. Not attraction, but obligation. The addiction also robs men of balance. They live in a constant state of readiness, always on edge, waiting for the next ping. Their energy is spread thin. Their attention is fragmented. They never truly rest, because someone else's mood is always more urgent than their own peace of mind. This is not love. This is slavery with a smile. And here is the cruel paradox. The more men give, the less they are respected, the more they serve. the more invisible they become. Until one day, they realize they are completely replaceable. Another man could step in and perform the same tasks, answer the same calls, carry the same burdens. The supposed bond was never about him. It was about the service. This is why the danger is so great. By chasing importance through availability, men destroy the very respect they crave. And until they face this truth, they remain stuck in the role of disposable providers. So the question sharpens even further: if addiction to being needed is the poison, what does the antidote look like? What happens when a man finally refuses to play the servant and demands to be seen as more than a utility? He's no longer living his story. He's an extra in someone else's show. When a man finally steps back, the reaction is almost always violent, not with fists, but with tactics. The system that feeds on his energy does not let go without a fight. At first, she may laugh it off, treating his silence as a joke, but when the old pattern does not return, escalation begins. Suddenly there are emergencies. Crises appear out of thin air. The guilt arrives in waves. You don't care anymore. You've changed. You're selfish. This is the protest of dependence. If his absence truly meant nothing, there would be no resistance. But the intensity of the backlash reveals the truth. She was never invested in him as a man. She was invested in his availability as a resource. The louder the protest, the clearer the evidence. Boundaries are working. Most men break at this stage, conditioned for years to believe that saying no is cruelty. They collapse under the weight of accusation. They run back to the old role, believing they are restoring peace. But they are not restoring anything. They are surrendering. They are teaching the system that persistence breaks boundaries. And once that lesson is taught, it will be used again and again until there is nothing left of the man. This is the point where many realize how deep the scam runs. Love is supposed to be mutual, but here it is conditional. Respect is supposed to grow with strength, but here it disappears the moment he asserts it. He sees that the relationship is not partnership, it is extraction. And extraction does not end voluntarily. It ends only when the source refuses to feed it. The escalation phase is brutal, but it is also proof of progress. Resistance means he has disrupted the cycle. It means the script is breaking. The storm of protest is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign to hold the line, because only by holding that line can he see what remains once the manipulation fails. And this is where the question shifts again. If escalation is the test, what happens when a man passes it? What does he discover about himself and about her? When he refuses to return to the role of servant. She texts, "You're cold now. You've changed." What she means is, why aren't you mine to control anymore? The harsh reality men refuse to face is this: predictability kills attraction. It does not matter how generous, how attentive, or how loyal a man is. If every move is predictable, the spark dies. Women crave presence, not routine. They crave depth, not dependence. And nothing screams dependence louder than instant replies, endless yeses, and constant availability. Reliability of character is powerful. It means a man's word can be trusted. His values are unshaken. His commitments stand firm. That is what creates respect. But predictability of access is the opposite. It means he has nothing better to do. It tells her that her whims always outrank his priorities. Over time, this does not feel safe to her. It feels suffocating. It strips away the challenge, the mystery, the tension that fuels desire. Most men confuse these two. They assume that always being reachable makes them dependable. But the truth is cruel. Dependability without boundaries is servitude. And servitude has never inspired attraction. Women may use it, but they do not admire it. They may rely on it, but they never respect it. The man becomes furniture useful, stable, and invisible. Always there, never desired. And here is the paradox that stings the most. Men think predictability will win loyalty. Instead, it guarantees indifference. When she knows every call will be answered, every favor granted, every demand fulfilled, she stops seeing him as a man with value. She sees him as an option with no alternatives. She sees him as background noise. The death of attraction does not arrive suddenly. It arrives quietly, hidden beneath politeness, disguised as routine. But one day, the man realizes the truth. He is not respected for his devotion. He is tolerated for his predictability. And by then, the damage is done. So the question burns sharper than ever if predictability suffocates desire. What does unpredictability create? What changes when a man stops being furniture and forces her to notice the space he leaves behind? He becomes a vending machine, always stocked, never appreciated. When predictability dies, scarcity begins. And scarcity is where respect is born. A man who is not endlessly accessible sends a message without speaking a word. His time has value. His attention is not free. His presence must be earned. This shift changes everything, because people do not respect what they can always reach. They respect what requires effort. Scarcity is not a trick. It is not about ignoring her to play games. It is about living a life so full, so driven, that no one person can monopolize it. A man who is building himself cannot answer every call. He cannot drop everything for drama. His absence is not neglect. It is proof of purpose. And purpose is magnetic. The power shift is immediate. Women who once dictated every interaction suddenly feel the tension of competition. For the first time, they realize access is not guaranteed. They must invest, adapt, and prove their value to keep his attention. This reversal creates respect, because respect always follows effort. Nobody cherishes what costs them nothing. And here is the psychological trigger most men never exploit. Scarcity creates desire. Abundance creates indifference. By being always available, men create their own invisibility. By being selectively available, they create presence. They flip the script. Instead of chasing, they are chased. Instead of begging for recognition, they command it. This is not cruelty. It is not punishment. It is balance. Because when a man refuses to be drained, he forces the relationship into reciprocity. Those who only wanted free service will vanish. Those who truly value him will rise to the challenge. The system exposes itself. So the question sharpens again if scarcity transforms respect, and scarcity shifts power. What happens next? What new version of himself does the man discover once he no longer lives at the mercy of someone else's demands? His absence isn't rejection, it's evidence of mission. When scarcity sets in, something deeper begins to unfold. The man who once lived as a servant finally meets himself. Individuation is the process that follows. It is the painful but necessary act of separating identity from utility. For the first time, he is not asking, "What do they need from me?" He is asking, "Who am I without their demands?" That question is terrifying because it strips away the illusion that service equals self. Most men never reach this stage. They stay busy, drowning in obligations, because silence is unbearable. Without someone else to please, they confront emptiness. They realize they have ignored their own desires, their own goals, their own passions for years. But in that discomfort lies the seed of freedom. Only by sitting in the silence can a man reclaim authority over his own life. Energy that was once wasted on late-night texts and endless drama suddenly returns. And when that energy is redirected, the transformation is visible. He trains his body instead of babysitting emotions. He builds his career instead of absorbing complaints. He cultivates his mind instead of being a therapist on call. Every ounce of strength reclaimed becomes a brick in the foundation of his identity. This is the moment women notice a difference they cannot explain. He is no longer reactive. He is no longer shaped by their moods. He is centered, grounded, present in himself. And that presence is magnetic because it is rare. Most men never radiate it. Most are too drained to even find it. But the man who reclaims his energy stands apart. Individuation is not isolation. It is not a rejection of love. It is a reclamation of self before love. Only a man who knows himself can give without losing himself. Only a man who guards his energy can offer it with meaning. That is the paradox the system hides when men stop serving blindly. They finally become worth serving. So the question sharpens again. If individuation gives a man back his strength, what does he do with it? How does this reclaimed power reshape not only his relationships, but the very way he moves through the world? He stops asking, "What do they need from me?" and starts asking, "Who the hell am I?" Really. When a man reclaims his energy, something unexpected happens. His value does not shrink with distance, it multiplies. This is the inversion most men never imagine. They think pulling back will push her away. But what really happens is loss aversion. People fear losing what they already have more than they desire something new. When she feels the possibility of losing access to his presence, respect begins to form, where indifference once lived. The shift is brutal because it exposes intentions. Women who only cared about the service panic and lash out. They try harder, not because they suddenly love him more, but because the free supply is threatened. Others disappear altogether, revealing they were never invested in him as a man. They were invested in convenience. This is the filter at work. It cleans the field with ruthless efficiency. What remains after the filter is clarity. A man no longer has to guess who values him. The ones still standing have already answered the question with their behavior. They respect the boundary. They adapt to his availability. They invest energy to match his. For the first time, relationships stop being one-sided extractions and start becoming reciprocal exchanges. The inversion also shifts his perception of himself. He realizes that value was never about constant service. It was about scarcity, self-respect, and standards. By demanding effort, he signals importance. By filtering out the users, he frees space for partners. The game flips. He is no longer chasing approval. Approval is chasing him. This is the truth men are never told. The moment you stop begging for attention, you become magnetic. The moment you stop giving everything away, you start being worth more. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped letting others consume you without cost. So the question deepens. If value inversion exposes who is real and who is fake, what is the final transformation that follows? What does it mean when a man stops being a resource and starts being a presence that commands respect? People don't chase what they like. They chase what they're afraid to lose. Once the filter clears the noise, what remains is presence, not the shallow presence of a man who hovers, waiting to be needed, but the deep presence of a man who stands rooted in himself. This is masculine presence, and it is rare. It cannot exist while he is always available, always reactive, always bending to someone else's moods. It only emerges when he has reclaimed his energy and rebuilt his identity apart from service. Masculine presence is not loud. It does not need to shout. It radiates in silence. A man with presence does not chase validation. He does not scramble to fix every emotion in the room. He carries himself with a calm weight, a gravity that others feel. And this gravity is magnetic. Women sense it instantly. They know the difference between a man who is centered and a man who is desperate. One draws them in, the other pushes them away. Most men never reach this state because they are drained long before they can build it. They spend their strength on constant accommodation, leaving nothing for themselves. But the man who withholds his energy, who invests it into his own growth, becomes different. His body is sharper. His mind is clearer. His purpose is alive. He no longer seeks completion from others because he has become complete within himself. This is the paradox women will never say out loud. They claim they want men who are endlessly caring, endlessly giving. But their desire tells another story. They are drawn to the man who is caring, but not controlled, present, but not dependent, warm, but not weak. This balance is what they respect, because it cannot be faked. It must be forged. Masculine presence changes the dynamic of every interaction. When a man carries it, he no longer asks for space. Space bends around him. He no longer begs for respect. Respect is assumed. And in this state, attraction is no longer about chasing. It is about being. So the final question forms. If presence makes a man magnetic, what happens when he directs that presence with purpose? What future opens when his energy no longer leaks, but flows with intention? Most men think presence means texting back fast, but real presence is a man who doesn't need to prove he's there. At the end of the day, constant availability isn't love. It isn't kindness, and it sure as hell isn't respect. More often, it's fear. Fear of being left, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough. And fear disguised as virtue will always keep you weak. Real respect comes from boundaries, from standards, from showing that your time and attention carry weight. Because when something is free, it gets ignored. When it must be earned, it becomes priceless. Women don't crave a man who's on call like customer support. That doesn't spark desire, it kills it. What they truly want is a man who is reliable in character, but selective with his attention. A man who chooses when and where to give his energy. That's the difference between being valued and being used. So stop selling yourself cheap. Stop handing out your presence like it costs nothing. Start treating it as what it really is, a gift, a choice, a signal that you respect yourself enough to protect your energy. That's when she values your time. That's when she values you. The men who master this shift don't become cold or distant. They become grounded, respected, desired. And their relationships grow stronger because they're built on respect, not exploitation. Remember, this availability should never be a default service. It should be a choice. And the men who live by that rule command respect. The men who don't, they lose it. If this hit you, don't just listen and move on. Apply it. Guard your time. Build your value. And if you want more straight talk like this, subscribe, hit that bell, and share this with a man who needs to hear it. Your future self will thank you.